day before I leave, I'm laying in my hospital bed and I'm feeling love. I'm going, oh, I know this feeling again. I'm feeling this love, right? I'm feeling this love. And I look at the end of my bed. At the end of my bed is Babaji.
This is the last week to sign up for Alchemy, my 8-week intensive course designed to propel you into a natural opening of the heart and profound spiritual awakening. There's only a few spots left, so sign up now. If you've been feeling stuck, limited, or overwhelmed and you want to become a powerful, effortless manifester, to experience heart-based consciousness, live effortlessly and flow and watch life open up before you, this is the course for you. I can't wait to see you there. I am here today with Reverend Bill McDonald, who has been on a spiritual journey spanning slightly over 7 decades. His whole life has been a mystical trip in search of gurus, the paranormal, and self-discovery. He's had multiple near-death experiences and spiritually transformative experiences, but I primarily had him on today to talk about Babaji.
I'm really glad we talked about this briefly before we went on to the recording. There's only so much you can say about near-death experiences, and once you've told the story 1,500 times to 1,500 different audiences, it's like, no, that's entertaining, that's inspiring, but let's talk about something different. And today you're picking a subject matter that's truly dear to my heart. And I think a lot of people in the West are just now discovering Babaji. And just to throw it out, because we got an audience, I don't know who's out there. The Babaji that I'm going to be talking about is the Babaji that's described in the sacred text of Autobiography of a Yogi.
Yes, I'm reading that right now.
There you go, by Paramahansa Yogananda. This wasn't even revealed to the Western world until 1946. And it's interesting when he revealed it in his book that all kinds of people came up. Oh, Babaji, everybody knows Babaji, every great saint, everybody's had an experience. And, it is what it is. But before 1946, nobody did anything. See, and in India, somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but in India, Babaji is just a sacred, reverend father, like the old statesman of the religion or something. So when they say Babaji, it's just an honored title.
Mm-hmm.
So there's people that are called Babaji. Oh yeah, I met Babaji. No, this is a whole different thing. So in frame of reference, this is the Babaji from the Autobiography of a Yogi. And I first read about this, and I wasn't going to talk about a near-death experience, but we will. I first read about this in my youth when I was a small child. First off, my mother was a member of Self-Realization Fellowship, which was Paramahansa Yogananda's organization in Los Angeles and worldwide. And in 1946, he wrote the book, Autobiography. My mother, of course, got a copy then, and she was taking the lessons. So I knew about the existence of Babaji from the cradle, hopefully not the grave, but yeah, eventually the grave. But I've known of this, and I've had stories read to me, and I had a particular story read to me that just inspired me when I was in the hospital. I was in the hospital a year, 1 year total bed rest. I was 8.5 to 9.5 years old, and I had a near-death experience. And while I was there, I remembered the story that my mother had read me about Babaji's cave, which is actually a chapter title, I believe, in the book. And it's about this avatar. And in the early 50s and 40s, when you said avatar, people didn't know what you were talking about.
Right.
I mean, now it's accepted avatar. There's movies that use the title. There's you can have an avatar for your computer program. I mean, it's a word. Back then, it was like nobody had a concept what an avatar was. So you have these great beings. You have 2 different types. You have the type that start off as a human being, ordinary, go through meditation, go through all these lifetimes, achieve spiritual greatness, and eventually they raise their level of vibration and their spirituality to this Christ-like stage. So you have the energy going up and becoming this avatar, this saint-like person. And then you have those that have descended from beyond someplace, and they come into a physical presence, either as a vision or an astral body or as a body of light, a rainbow body, or even a human body at times, as some believe Jesus was. Anyway, so they come down and they're an avatar. So they can come up, they can go down. I have no clue about that personally. I haven't made that journey yet, but that's what they tell me in India. Because I go, what's exactly an avatar? Well, you got this and you got that. Anyway, so at 8.5 years old, laying in a hospital bed, thinking about Babaji's cave. Now, Babaji's cave is not a story just about a cave. It's about a visit to a cave in the Himalayan mountains in 1840s or 50s or whatever it was. This great saint, Larry Masha, who was a guru, and he was sent there, summoned there for a job, and he got there and he didn't know why he was there, and he decided to take a hike, and he's hiking in the Himalayas. He hears his name being called, and he's summoned to this mountain, this cliff, and he hikes up this thing, and he gets there, and he finds this cave, and he finds this youthful looking semi-naked man there. The guy has a loincloth basically, and he's got long black hair, and he's very young, youthful looking, and he's welcomed there, and then he's reawakened spiritually by this saint that appears to him, who turns out to be the Babaji, who came back into the world in the 1800s to reinitiate and restore a meditation technique which had been taught for thousands of years in the world. And then it got lost. Basically, it was just the great divine masters that were using it, and the masses didn't know anything about it, called Kriya Yoga, which, simple explanation is, it's the movement of energy and light through your spinal cord. Some people call it Kundalini energy when it starts to rise and vibrate and all that stuff. But basically, it's this moving light and energy, changing the frequency of your actual spine and bringing energy and light in from around you and through your chakras, and enlightens you, literally enlightens you. You become lighter and more vibrant vibration, actually, frequency. So it's a technique. It's about breathing and visualizing and all this. So he initiated this Larry Masha in this cave, and while he was at the cave, Larry Masha still had an earthly desire, which was to live in a castle or a kingdom. He wanted to be the king or something. He had this kingdom that he wanted. And so Babaji, having read his desires in his mind, creates this astral kingdom, this beautiful palace out of gold and everything. And he spends the night walking around this great palace and realizes that, okay, that was fun, but it's not what I was really looking for. I mean, he found Babaji. I mean, that was really what he was looking for. And so he was told afterwards, well, you go down to the creek and wash and bathe and, basically, baptize yourself and cleanse yourself, and this thing will disappear. So that was a story I was told. I was in search of that mystical, sacred place pretty much all my life. And every time I tried to take a trip when I was young, I ran out of money. I only got as far as Europe, or I only got as far as Asia. I mean, one thing, and then I got married, you got kids, you just don't go tripping off to the Himalayas. So that was always in the back of my mind. And it was direct connection with my near-death experience at that age, where I had a near-death experience, and I had visions of my future to age 58 and a half, almost 59. So it was like a 50-year forward look, which made an interesting life, because it was like living deja vu every day. It was like you knew what was going to happen. But I knew at the end of that journey, something was waiting for me, whether it was death or something, but I wanted to find Babaji. Okay. So when I was having that first near-death experience, and I have to kind of tie it in because it ties into this first experience with Babaji, I kept seeing two numbers floating up and down. They would flip, a 29 and then a 59. They would reappear. 29. You know, when you take a 2 and you flip it upside down, it kind of looks like a 5, and a 5 looks like a
Yeah.
2.
Mhm.
And I didn't know what that meant. At the time, I thought it meant, well, maybe there's a warning there. Maybe I'm going to die at 29. Maybe I'm going to die at 59, or something's going to happen. Maybe I need to start taking that as a lesson and take care of my body, because I just spent, I mean, a year in a hospital and I was really bad shape. So I became basically a vegetarian. I didn't smoke. I didn't drink. I didn't do caffeine. Didn't do sugar. Didn't. I mean, stayed off all that stuff, and lived a pretty clean, healthy life. So when I was 58 and a half, almost 50 years to the month, when I was in the hospital as a child, I had an opportunity. I'd retired. I had an opportunity. I had a friend who wanted to go with me to go to India. I said, "Hey, I want to go to India. I want to find this place, Babaji's cave." And he goes, "I've never been to India. I'll follow you wherever you go, right?" It's a good traveling companion. I like it, right? You don't want to travel the Himalayas or any foreign country, even being a guy, it's probably worse for being a woman. But when you're traveling by yourself, it's nice to have a companion,
Mhm.
look after you if you have trouble. And, and I already had a few heart attacks. So it was like, I don't want to be traveling and have a heart attack and I'm a stranger someplace. And, so we got on an airplane, we flew, we hired a driver and a vehicle in Delhi, told him where I wanted to go. He had no clue where that was. I kind of did some research and said, well, it's in this area of India, it's up in the Himalayas, and you got to go here and you got to go there. And so we spent 2.5 months traveling to India, but we did finally end up in the vicinity where this cave was at. And we went to an ashram run by the YSS, which is a offshoot of Self-Realization Fellowship, which is Yogananda's American and Western organization. And in India, it's the YSS, which is his Indian branch of the same thing. And they had a Swami there at the ashram, and I told him what I wanted. And he goes, yes, yeah, this is the place. He says, but we have a convocation going on, and everybody's gone except for me, and I'm leaving in a couple of days. And there's nobody who's going to be able to take you to this cave, and you can't find the cave on your own. I go, really? He says, well, I said, look, I've waited 50 years to get here. I don't know if I'm ever coming back or if I'm going to be alive to come back. But 50 years, I'm not going to leave here unless I go see the cave. So there I was, facing a situation where I knew if I didn't go then, I probably was never going to see it. And this was my lifetime thing. So I'm even getting a tear in the eye even thinking about this. I'm sorry. So the next day after sleeping at the ashram, and I'm talking about an ashram with hard wooden beds. I mean, I say wood beds, I mean no mattress, wood, planks of wood, and I put a couple of blankets under it. And then the windows, there was no glass in the windows. It was just screened to keep the bugs out. And we're up in the Himalayan mountains and it's November. So it's getting cold. So they got a bucket of water there for me. And when I get up in the morning, that's my bucket to bathe in and everything. When I wake up in the morning, there's 4 inches of ice on the top. So I'm thinking, yeah, okay, a little, my face, that's a cold bath. So I come downstairs and the Swami was sitting there, and it was just me and my buddy and the driver and him. And he personally fixed us breakfast. I was really, it was, we each had a potato, we each had a little clump of rice, and we had tea, chai, tea and milk and stuff. That was it, right? And some bread of some kind. And so he's trying to discourage me. He says, it's really difficult to go there. I said, no, I got to go there. And he says, well, okay. So he pulls out a piece of paper. He takes out a pencil and he starts, squibbling and squibbling and squibbling. And said, hey, if you go down the road here, you leave this ashram, take a ride out here. You come down to the town, maybe not the first street, maybe not the second, or maybe it's the third. But it's one of those streets. Turn, head north. I think that's left. Yeah, it could be right, but it's north. This is the kind of instructions he's giving me, right? And you go down this road and 10, 11 miles. It could be 15, could be 13, but there'll be a road. And this is the whole kind of instructions I'm getting. And then you turn, and then maybe you turn, and then you stop, and then you go down this road. You can't go any farther. He says, can you find it? I go, well, if I'm destined to find it, I'll find it, right? So he says, I only got one set of instructions for you. And that is you have to get back before 5:30. So I'm giving you the keys to the cave. They actually have to, here's what's sad. Babaji Cave, because it's a sacred place and it's famous now and people discovered where it's at, they've actually had to put a gate on it, like bars, like a jail, with a lock to keep people from going inside, where they were chipping pieces of rocks away to sell people a rock from the cave, right? And there were, graffiti and, even in India, the most sacred places, people will try to make a buck, right? So he gives me key to the cave and key to it. They built a temple up there, a Babaji's temple. So that's where we're heading. So I go down the road and I tell the driver, thinks I'm crazy at this point because he heard the instructions. I go, turn here, turn there. I go, why? No, just go there, go there, go. So I go through the same routine and we end up, I said, park here. It's a dirt road and we'll get out, we're going to walk. And the last instruction was when you park and you start to walk, eventually you're going to see a bunch of trailheads going up the mountainside on your right side. And you will take the one that has a sign. Of course, none of them had a sign. And there was a sign saying to Babaji's Cave that was somebody took down and threw into the road up on the, on the other side of the road. We couldn't tell which trail it went to. And they all looked like trails, cow trails, people trails. So, okay, wind's going that way. Let's take that one. So it normally would take, I'm guessing, because I don't know, I would guess it's probably an hour hike. But we're at this thing 5 hours, 4 or 5 hours. We're finally starting to see the top. I'm having trouble. When I first got to India, I caught dysentery. And so I was having some real problems. So that was making it very uncomfortable going there. And I was also dealing with a heart condition. I had previous heart attacks and I was having seizures. I've had some seizures. So I was having these lightheaded things and chest pains and then I was sweating, really sweating. And then I stopped sweating. I thought, well, I stopped sweating. I must be okay, right? What did I know about dehydration, right? Oh, yeah, you don't sweat no more. You're in trouble, right? That's when you're in trouble, when you stop sweating. So we didn't have jackets, didn't have sweaters, didn't have flashlights, didn't have matches, didn't have food, snacks, nothing. We're just out for this day hike. Well, we spent all morning and into the afternoon now. And my heart is pounding. Boom, boom. It's just, you can see the shirt going. It's really pounding. And so I'm wearing a hat pretty much like this one, and I got my sandals on, and I got a short sleeve shirt on, and I'm just walking and getting weaker and weaker and weaker. We get to the top, we unlock the gate, we get in there, and we go to the temple, and there's this 6-7 foot portrait painted of Babaji. It's his temple, and it's just beautiful. And I just lay down on the carpet. They got a carpet there, and I just lay down on it. And I just, wasn't a very formal meditation. I was like, I'm here. I was trying to catch my breath. And about 20 minutes later, I said, okay, let's go the rest of the way to the cave, because the cave's about 100 yards up from there, and it's uphill. Get to the cave, we unlock it. My friend says, you go in first, because it's my journey. And I go inside, and I kept this list. I was going to go to this sacred place, and I thought, who else could benefit from this? I'm going, who else could come with me? And I knew they couldn't physically come with me. So I took and I typed on my computer with like number 10 or 8, whatever the smallest indicia print you can get, right? At single spaces, 4 pages, both sides, names of everybody I ever knew I could remember. It was loaded. I had people that were high school friends, people in the military, neighbors, enemies, old bosses, hitchhikers I picked up, people I just met in, beggars, whatever, teachers. I had everybody I could think of. And some people, I didn't remember their names, but I put hitchhiker picked up 1990. I figured God knows who they are. Babaji know who they are. I don't have to remember. I got the image in my mind. That's all he needs, right? So I had all these things listed on the paper. And I've been taking this paper with these names on it to all these sacred places in India. Every time I went to a temple or sacred place, I had that with me. But I was saving it for the cave. This little, it's not huge, it's a small cavern. But when you walk in there, you could feel and touch the air, if that makes sense. It's like the oxygen is like liquid. Your breathing is changed. Everything's changed in there. There's just a vibration of love. It's just your home. And when you sit there, and after spending 50 years to get there, and I pull out my list and I mentally read all these and ask Babaji to bless all these people. And I fold it and I put it back in my jacket and I meditate. And my heart is just going crazy bad. Just felt like somebody had a rusty can opener and was just taking my heart and trying to, rattle it up. It wasn't doing well. But I made it to Babaji's cave, so I was happy. I figured, if I croak coming down, it's okay. So we leave. We're trying to find it. Remember, we were lost going up. Now we're going to try to go back, and it gets even more lost. And now it's the afternoon, and the long shadows. I mean, it's a nice warm day walking up, but now the shadows from the sun. These are big, tall mountains blocking the sun because the sun's a little lower in the sky because it's winter. So now you're getting this like early darkness, like a shadow on you that's cold. I mean, it's not dark, but it's shadowed, and it's really cold. I mean, it's chilled, and I'm standing next to this cliff. It's a 30-foot cliff. I'm standing there, and I'm just looking down, and all of a sudden my head is spinning, and then my heart's going boom, boom. I'm waiting for the next boom. There's no next boom. All of a sudden I'm black, and I topple off a 30-foot cliff. I'm assuming I went shoulders head first. I don't know. But the good news was it wasn't a straight drop down. It was kind of sloped like a couple ledges. I'd hit it, bounce a couple, about 2-3 bounces. My buddy later said, "Oh yeah, you bounced 2 or 3 times." Oh, good. That's good, right? Yeah, that was good. And I landed on my back on what was about the size of a Volkswagen Bug. Like the rock was like a Volkswagen. It was just a big old rock. I'm laying there on my back, looking up at the sky, and then realizing that I don't feel any pain. I don't feel nothing. I don't feel a heartbeat. I'm not breathing. Nothing is happening. I'm just laying there and feeling wonderful. I mean, I just fell off 30-foot cliff, and I'm feeling this is nice. I mean, I felt good. I felt loved. I felt like the universe was embracing me. I mean, I was really being loved. And then I felt light, meaning LIGHT, and light, like light body, no weight. So it was a lightness. And it was just rising. I could tell it was rising because my friend's on this 30-foot cliff looking down at the body. And I'm looking pretty much at him, hey, doesn't see me. And I looked down and I realized, well, this was just like my first near-death experience. I was little. I was looking at my body and I knew that's not me. That's not me. I'm looking down this body kind of, laying down there and I'm going, that's that old guy down there, man. He's all beat up and everything. That's not me, right? I knew that. I knew the real me was this consciousness, this light force that was not dead, was continuing to be whatever it was. And it was love. And so I looked down And much as I'm enjoying it, I look down and I see a big, huge cobra crossing over my feet, my ankle, my feet, and I got, sandals on, and this thing is just, I see this big head, and it's just, and it's coming out of one part of the grass, going to this other part of the grass. It's just going, going, going. So I don't see the beginning and the end of it. So the first time I told this story, I mean, my wife, she stopped me in the middle of the story. She says, first time you told the story, this was a 7 foot, 5 to 7 foot snake. And now you're saying it's a king cobra. I said, well, if it's on your feet, it's huge. It's the biggest thing you've ever seen, right? I mean, it's huge. I have no clue how big it was, but it felt like it could have been a giant cobra. I mean, king cobra had no clue. But I was so excited by the fact that this snake was crawling across my feet. It wasn't fear, it was love, the opposite of fear. I loved that snake so much. I felt a kinship with that snake. I wanted to be with it. And I didn't know at the time, maybe I didn't know, I was ignorant, that the Kundalini energy is symbolized by the cobra snake. And when your energy rises, it's like the cobra snake. And there's this whole mythology about the cobra snake and the energy in the spine and all that. I didn't know any of that at the time. I just love this snake. This is just beautiful. It's beautiful. So it was like the fire department had come and found my body. It was like there was a fireman going clear, because all of a sudden it was like I was defibrillated, and all of a sudden I jump up, but I was defibrillated by the power of love. And I went from this conscious light floating around watching all this to back heavy in my body. And the body wasn't concerned about anything but grabbing the snake. And my friends yelling at me on the cliff, going crazy, right? And I'm sitting there and I'm trying to grab the snake. I'm trying to grab the snake. I'm trying to grab the snake. And someplace around the middle of the snake, it keeps slithering through. And I got my hands like this, trying to touch my fingertips around the snake. I can't get my fingertips there. It's like this, which means the snake is that big. I can't get fully around it. And it's just slithering and slithering. And it doesn't turn around, try to get me. And it just keeps going. And I keep chasing it through this tall grass. Grass is about 3 feet tall. And I'm walking through it, in my sandals. And there's a snake down there between my legs, just going between my legs. And it kept touching it, trying to grab it. And it finally gets to this creek, little stream. And there's a waterfall that's trickling from the cliff, maybe 8-9 feet tall, just a little ribbon of water. And the snake crawls up behind the waterfall. There's a little cavern, and it curls up and sticks its head up with its tongue, that it's just saying there, looking at me, and I'm looking at it. No fear, just love. But it was like, no, goodbye. That's where I'm going. And then I remembered the book and the chapter of Babaji's cave, where after he had that castle materialized, and dematerialized, and he's back down. He told to go wash himself. There was this little waterfall in the stream. Well, nobody knew that was that. Nobody's found it. And here I was wandering around lost, and I fall off a cliff. And that's the first thought I have is, this is where Larry Masha bathed. This is where he found stability and peace after having this supernatural experience. This is where he, got back to himself. And a thought came to me, and I kind of gave a namaste, a little bow to the snake. And I turned around, my friend came down. We got to get out of here, So we followed the stream back. We got in the car, and then we had to get back before 5:30 because the guy was going to lock the gates, and we have his keys and everything. So we get back. He's just out there ready to lock the gate. We pull up. It's just about 5:30 on the nose. And so he asked me if I found Babaji's cave. And so I proceeded to tell him the story. I told him about being sick going. I told him about, I even got a rash, kind of like whatever India they have. It's kind of like poison ivy, poison oak, but it's whatever they got there. I had lumps all over. I had a torn shirt from falling. I had scratches and bruises and dirt. I mean, I looked like I'd been in a war. And I should know, I've been in a war. So I give him the whole blow by blow and having a heart attack and falling off the cliff and the cobra snake, which got his attention, and everything that happened and getting back there. And he just kind of, shook his head. And there was a woman there from Alaska. I guess she was in her 40s or 50s. And she heard the story and she goes, well, don't you know what they say, mister? And she kept interrupting me saying, don't you know what they say? Don't you know what they say? Well, I'm trying to tell them the story. And I finally just get annoyed. I go, all right, what are you trying to tell me? What do they say? And she says, they say that those that go to Babaji's cave and have the most arduous journey have the greatest blessing. And the Swami kind of looks at me and he says, nobody's told me a more arduous story. Yeah, you win. That's it, right? So we went and we meditated, and it was cold, and I should have been chilled and freezing. I didn't care. I sat in the ashram there and I meditated that evening, and I was all beat up and bruised and so happy. I spent almost 59 years of my life getting to the place that I wanted to be. So at this ashram, it's got beautiful Babaji statues and everything, and that's the real energy of this place. It's all about Babaji, and it was such a beautiful gift. And I kept thinking, it didn't matter to me that I come that close to being gone, dead, gone. I was totally at peace with the fact that I'd been to Babaji's cave. It was like, well, what else is there to live for? I mean, I got a wife and children and a grandchildren. We got all this stuff. That didn't matter. It didn't matter. What mattered was I'd reached the place that I was searching for 50 years. And I was rewarded with it. Other things happened, which I will tell you later, that I can't talk about them. But I'm giving you the surface of this experience, but realize the surface, there's much depth below it. There was other things that transpired, but I can give you that part of the story. So you would think a normal person, emphasize normal, which most men are not. A woman, if she had that experience with a heart attack, what's the first thing they would have did? They would have got back, they would have saw a doctor, they'd have got a checkup. I finished my journey. I spent another month there in the desert and everything, and riding camels and going up to Pakistan and all that stuff. And I'm going, I get home. It's December. And after I just spend months searching India for this great sacred man of God, some guru that was going to be waiting for me on a ledge on a mountaintop someplace to bless me and give me the secrets of life. I traveled all over India, and everywhere I went, they asked me questions. It was a really strange experience. I ended up teaching people Kriya Yoga and meditation and stuff, and it was like, this ain't fair. I'm here to experience something else. So when I get back, I got this lump that's growing on my forehead, right between my eyes. And so I go to Kaiser in late December, and they look at it and they said, you got a big cancerous tumor there, and it's growing. It's huge. So they immediately took it out. I mean, that morning, boom, they just went right in and operated on it. And so I had a bunch of stitches in the forehead. I remember telling my wife, I go, how beautiful is this? I go to India on a spiritual quest, come back, and I got cancer to spiritual eye that's removed and I'm cleansed. I said, what kind of symbolism is that, right? I mean, you get all that garbage in you, gone, right? Gone. And so she thought I was definitely crazy. So meanwhile, I go through December, I go through January. Towards the end of January, after collapsing in my garage numerous times, heart problems, I figured, maybe it might be a good idea to see a doctor. Maybe it might be a good idea. So I told my wife, I said, I'm not feeling good. I'm going to drive to the South Kaiser Hospital in Sacramento, and I'm going to get checked out. Well, I'm telling her that while I'm having a full-blown heart attack. I mean, my heart feels like somebody takes a sledgehammer to it. It's just pounding it. I mean, it was really bad. It was painful, but I was just like this. I didn't want her to worry. I get in my pickup truck with 5 speed on the floor. I'm going through the gears. I'm driving 7 miles to the hospital. I drive to Kaiser. ER parking lot's full. I have to go to another parking lot and then walk about, football field away, to the ER. I get in there and there's 18 people, literally 18 people in line that have walked in because I didn't walk in the ambulance place because that's for ambulance. So I walk in and I stand in line for 15, 20 minutes. I'm having this minutes, I'm dizzy and everything. I get up there. The lady looks at me and she asks me a question. What's the first question you'd ask somebody coming into ER? What do you think? How are you? What's wrong?
Right. Yeah. Why are you here?
What's the first question? Do you have insurance?
Oh, wow.
That was the first and only question she asked. I said, yeah, there's my Kaiser card. Okay, then she never asked another medical question. Like, are you bleeding? Are you in pain? Nothing. So she hands me a clipboard. She goes, take this 3-page clipboard, go over there, fill it out, then get in that line and go up to that lady and give it to her. Okay. Nobody asked me what's wrong with me, though. So I take the clipboard. It has all these questions on it, blah, blah, blah. And then it has one big question at the end. What'd you come in for? I'm having a full-blown heart attack. It's basically, I'm having a heart attack, right? So I go in the other line. There's like 8 people ahead of me. I finally get up there, and the lady's looking at me. And she, give me the flip thing, give her the chart. And she's looking at it, and she reads what I wrote. She goes, you're having a full-blown heart attack? And I go, yeah, right now I'm having a major heart attack. She goes, how'd you get here? I said, well, I drove. Where'd you park? I told her I parked. You stood in that line? Yeah. Stood in this line? Yeah. Yeah. Sit down over here. I'll be the judge of this. So she sits down, takes her stethoscope, and she goes. And then it was like I was in Kmart. Remember Kmart where they had that blue light special? The light goes on and it's a sale. Well, all of a sudden, it's like lights go on, whatever color it was, whatever code it was. I don't know what code's blue code, black code. I have no idea. But some kind of code goes on. And next thing you know, she's going, my God, you're having a heart attack. And next thing you know, they got a gurney. They're strapped me to the gurney. They're rolling me in the thing. And she goes, you're having a heart attack. And I go, and just like this, I go, yes, I know. That's why I came in. No, you really had a heart attack. I said, yes, I know. Thank you. Well, and then the doctor comes and he's like, oh, we got to do surgery. I got to do, blah, blah, blah. This looks full blockage, all this stuff. And so while I'm sitting there where this is going on, I don't normally complain, but I complained. I go, I've been a vegetarian for, 5, 6 decades. I don't do salt. I don't eat sugar. I don't drink caffeine. I don't do nicotine. I don't do any drugs. I exercise. I meditate. I mean, why me? Why am I getting a heart attack, right? I mean, it's like, hey, come on, let's recheck that with God. He's got the wrong guy here, right? So the doctor looks at me and he's got my charts and my whole time at Kaiser. He got my whole record there and he looks at it and he goes, well, Mr. McDonald, he says, looking at your record and looking at your test results and all your other stuff, he says, you're lucky you didn't die at 29. Now it's almost 59. In fact, he says, 2 weeks, you'll be 59. And I'm going, 29, 59. And he goes, had you not taken care of yourself as you did, if you drank and smoked and did all these things, he says, you wouldn't be here today. And I'm going, oh. And then it made sense, my first near-death experience, right, the 29, 59. And to add a little flavor to that, when I was born in San Francisco at St. Mary's Help Hospital, what's interesting is since I've been born, they dropped the word help. They don't no longer need any help, I guess. St. Mary's Hospital is no longer St. Mary's Help. Anyway, so I was born on March 16th, 1946. And in that same hospital, somebody I got to meet in the 4th grade, 40 miles away in the town of Sunnyvale, Silicon Valley, I had a classmate that had the same birth date, same hospital, an hour apart, Paul H. O'Brien Jr. and William H. McDonald Jr., 2 Irishmen were born about an hour apart. We're sitting in that hospital. Our mothers are sitting in a ward together. And we didn't know that until 4th grade. when he had his birthday, and the teacher said, "Who has a birthday today?" And both of us, right? And then we started talking. So I checked with the reunion committee before went to the hospital, about a month or two before. I asked, "Hey, we got a reunion coming up. I wanted to see Paul O'Brien. Is he going to be there?" And they go, "Oh, I'm sorry, Bill. Paul died. He didn't make it to 59. So if you believe in astrology, there's a guy that was not a vegetarian, never met a vegetable he liked, heavy meat eater, smoking, drinking, doing everything you could think of. And we're both born an hour apart. One of us were dead. So doctor just told me that I got a serious problem. I'm thinking, can I make 2 weeks to 59? Can I make, 2 weeks, right? Anyway, so that all kind of tied together. So now we're going to jump forward. A few years later, I decided to go back to India with these warm memories of Babaji. And I go, I get another chance. I survived. I didn't die. I ended up with 5 stents and a bunch of other stuff, but I didn't die. So I go back to India and I met this guy. He invited me to his ashram. He says, Bill, come to the ashram. Your family. Don't have to pay. Don't do that. Just show up. I'll take care of you. So I came and I spent like 3-4 months there. And I did that over several years. But the first year I went there, didn't have a lot of guests at that time. It was like he has a retreat, but it was before the retreat. So I was there. There was like 4 guys and me, and this woman. And we're sitting around a campfire, and the guru goes to bed, and it's, past midnight. And we decided to tell ghost stories, demon stories, and all that stuff. And my friend, who used to be a drug addict and used to be an alcoholic and all that stuff, and he goes, "Oh man, the demons, the demons got to him, all that stuff." And and this woman, she was talking about ghosts that her family had, there's family ghosts, and they were all, and then something you should never ever do at a sacred place, never. I challenge the sacred place and I go, there's nothing that scares me. I go, what do you mean? I go, I've seen demons, I've seen ghosts, I've seen angels, I've seen evil, I've seen everything. I've been in war, I've seen it all. Nothing scares me. I challenge the universe at the ashram around a sacred fire. Never say that. Nothing scares me, because the universe will rise to the occasion. It will give you what you need to take that old ego and push it down. So I had this reputation, because the guru would be calling me. He called me the general because of my war experience and some other reasons as well. But he's called me the general. And so I had this reputation as the brave guy. I've been through war, been through this, been through that. Nothing phases Reverend Bill. So I make that brag there at the campfire. And then I go back to I have a bungalow and I have it all to myself. And it's totally dark. I unlock the door and I go in and it's totally dark and I got a flashlight. And the flashlight shines on my bed, which is this bunk right in front of the door. And there, sitting in all glorious divine energy, is Babaji. Sitting there cross-legged, long black hair, shining, beautiful, youthful skin. But I didn't notice all that, right? Loincloth, barefoot. I didn't notice that. What I noticed was his eyes were looking straight through me. Like it was like a laser beam. It was like lasers coming out of his eyes, like that, right? It was like, this don't scare you? It was like, I'm getting these lasers at me. And all of a sudden my heart's going, oh, and I throw my flashlight up in the air, and it was like, you're probably too young to remember, but there was a movie, 2001 Space Odyssey, where they show the scene where the monkeys are throwing bones and they go up and anyway. So I throw this flashlight up and it goes, it spins around on the floor, and I get down on the floor and I think I'm having a heart attack. Babaji, I see his legs there and everything. I'm going, I pick up the flashlight and I shine. It's gone. I look around, there's nobody there. And I'm going, thank God nobody witnessed that, because me bragging about nothing scares me just got the living daylights. Like, oh, I go, whoa, right? And so I figured, well, Babaji's having a good laugh someplace. But at that time, it was like, that was, it presented itself quite well. I was like, that's interesting. So I go to bed that night. I get up the next day and I'm walking across this ashram compound, the ground, going to have breakfast. And I heard a patter of little feet behind me. It's the guru. It's his ashram. And he goes, "Be." And he comes up and I stop and I look over at him and he says, "I thought those things weren't supposed to scare you." I go, what? So he says, "When we have breakfast this morning, I want you to tell everybody what happened last night." So in front of all these people at the ashram, and he brought in the help and everybody, and he had me tell the story of my braveness as I saw Babaji and almost had a heart attack, and everybody thought it was the greatest, funniest thing they ever had. And I got humbled very quick. I've never made this claim again that nothing ever scares me. But it was like, you never test the divine. You don't think so? They will find something to scare you. So that was another interesting encounter, one that I could talk about because I was ordered to talk about it. Then that was about 2009, I think it was. Then 2011, I was at the ashram. I just came from giving a workshop in Munster, Germany. I gave a one-day workshop there, which is a super story in itself. But it sets me up for coming back to India because I wasn't feeling good. Again, I wasn't feeling good in Germany yet. Now let's go forward, get on an airplane, go. So I get to Germany. I'm introducing this guru at various big venues. Thousands of people coming to see him in Mumbai and Pune and some other places. And I'd do an introduction of him and I'd speak for 15, 20 minutes. And this one day I had a heart attack afterwards and I collapsed and it was really bad. The guru's wife made me go to ER. Guys don't want to go to an ER. Come on, what's going on here? So an ER goes, "No, you should go home. You need surgery." All right. So my last day at the ashram was going to be that day. So I go to the ashram. I'm packing up. I'm sitting in the lunchroom, the same lunch place or the eating place that I had humiliated myself and humbled myself at just the year before. There I am. I'm sitting there. And there's a few others at the ashram. And I feel somebody looking at my back. You know somebody's looking at you like you're in a movie theater. Who's looking? Why are you looking at me? I ain't staring. No, you can tell when somebody's staring at your back, right? So somebody's staring at my back. So I turn around and I see not a vision, not an astral body, not wavy lines, not a body of light, not a dream, an actual physical body of the guru of Paramahansa Yogananda, Srivateshwar, who died in like 1937 or 8 or whatever it was. And he was standing there with his hands like this, then he had his hands behind his back, and he's just looking at me. I'm not afraid of that. It feels good. It's a beautiful thing. I'm feeling love and everything. I'm going, wow, I guess I really had a pretty bad heart attack. I'm close to going over. And when you have one of the big guys come over to check on you, you got to go, oh, this guy's ready to come out of the oven. All right, come on, he's done. So I'm looking around the room, and there was these two lovely girls. They were into yoga meditation, meaning exercises and all the postures, and they did a little meditation. But they weren't, I wouldn't call them heavy meditators. They're good people, and they're into it, but light. And I asked them, I said, "You see anything behind me?" And they go, "No. What are you, crazy or something? There's nothing there." I said, "Okay." And they went back to chit-chatting with each other. And there was this guy from Texas. I said, "Do you see anything?" He says, "Wow." He says, "There's blinding light behind you. There's this orb, just blinding light." He says, "I'm feeling loved. But I don't know what it is, but it's this orb of light, just pulsating." I said, "Okay." And then there was this young guy, a Jewish lawyer guy from Arizona. that was sitting there and he was staring at that same area. So I go, okay, what do you see? He says, well, you ain't going to believe this, Bill. And I said, try me. He says, I see Roteshwar standing behind you with his hands, and he did the same demonstration, this and that. And I go, yes, Brian was his name. I go, yes, Brian. It's exactly what I see. Except he saw it kind of like a vision, like, he's kind of like light flowing through and stuff. So it wasn't solid body. So there I was seeing a solid body. He's seeing a light body, like a vision. The other guy is seeing light orb and feeling the love and the energy. And the other two, nothing. Shows you that angels can be in a room. Children will see them, nobody else will, right? It's where you're at. It's where your energy is at. It's where your frequency is at. Me being near death maybe was part of the factor. Maybe my frequency is at a different level or something. But I saw the actual flesh and blood material body. They saw variations of that or nothing at all. And it was really odd because that was occurring and everybody was an equal opportunity experiencer. So it shows you that you could take a trip with somebody and you come back, you saw a different trip. I find out, people see different things. But on spiritual experiences, people could be having them right next to you. I mean, I've had talks where I've given, like in Tucson, Arizona, where I'm just feeling so overwhelmed, tears are rolling down my face. I'm feeling such love. And I look up and there's angelic, I'll just put it this way, angelic energy. So let it go at that. All around the ceiling of this place, I got about 600 people there. And I look at the audience, because I haven't said that, I look at the audience, and 60 to 75% of the people were crying. And I wasn't telling a sad story, but everybody's got, and I called attention. People were going, they're looking at their cheeks and stuff. And I'm trying to tell people, but see, not everybody could sense that they're being hovered over by these angelic beings. But they could pick up the love, which was so heavy that it made them tearful and feeling joy, but with no organic reasons why. They didn't understand. And then when I pointed it out to them, it was like, oh yeah, I remember that. I was crying. I don't know why. So experiencing things is a matter of frequency. And when you change your frequency, you change what you attract, what you see. It's not believing is seeing. Seeing is believing. To me, it is. If it is, you see it. There is no believing, not believing, positive thinking, being receptive. It's organic frequency. So when you've altered your Kundalini energy through Kriya Yoga or whatever else, and a good lifestyle, and associating with good people, and reading good books and good thoughts and kind deeds and compassion, and having love in your heart, and not eating heavy red meat and alcohol and drugs. All those things aren't sins. They're just frequency changers. They bring a frequency down. So listen to whatever you want, eat whatever you want. I don't care. It's not a sin, but it brings your frequencies down. If you eat certain kinds of food, it's more inclined to work on your lower chakras, your sexual, energies and stuff like that versus your, your angelic stuff. So it's all about energy and frequency. So I have that encounter in India before I leave. I get on the airplane. I fly, because this leads to another encounter here. And I fly to Denver, Colorado. I get off the airplane. I collapse. And I'm taking care of the paramedics. I finally get back on the airplane. I end up in Sacramento. I end up in the hospital. I end up open heart surgery. I end up having another near-death experience, except this one, I'm transported to India in a regular full body. It's an embodiment. It wasn't a thing. We could talk about that at another time. But anyway, so my last Normally when you go in for heart surgery now, it's like 3, 4 days in the hospital, they kick you out. I'm there almost a month. I mean, I was in bad shape. Day before I leave, I'm laying in my hospital bed and I'm feeling love. I go, oh, I know this feeling again. I'm feeling this love, right? I'm feeling this love. And I look at the end of my bed, and at the end of my bed is Babaji. No shirt on, long black hair, loving me with the eyes, just love. No blazing, love. And he's pouring oil and water on my forehead. And he's chanting some ancient language. I have no clue what it was, but I felt love. And this went on for a long time. And at the time, I felt like nobody else could see it because it was like an energy. It was like somebody took a crystal bowl, glass bowl, turned it upside down over something, right? It was like a giant crystal bowl over my hospital bed. Couldn't see anything beyond it. It was like energy out there. So I thought, well, I'm hallucinating. I'm having an experience. Nobody else is going to understand. But this is good. If you can hallucinate, having Babaji there to hallucinate with, it's a beautiful thing, right? So I get home from the hospital, a couple days home, and my adult daughter, Dea, she comes over and she goes, Dad, our old neighbor David, he went to visit you at the hospital. I said, no, he didn't. She says, oh, yeah, he did. No, he didn't. She says, well, he said he was there, the day before he came home. He went there that morning. And I go, no, he didn't. I didn't see him. And he says, well, he said he went into your room and then he saw this crazy young Indian guy with no shirt on, no socks on, long hair, pouring stuff on your head, chanting some crazy song. And he started laughing. He didn't want to embarrass you, so he left. As I told my daughter. Oh, now the strangest Babaji experience that I can talk about. Now, I said something before we started the recording. I said that basically I have experiences that I can talk about, that I've been told to talk about, to share. And there's some that are too personal, too sacred, or I've been forbidden from. So just leave that on the surface. But in 2010, the first time I had my nose cut off. This nose has been cut off 3 times. So it's been rebuilt 3 times. There's another whole story. Anyway, so I went in and had my nose surgically removed, and it was an all-day thing. I went home. I had no nose, just a big hole, bandaged up, bleeding. And it was very, very painful because they cut, then they burn, to keep it from bleeding. And you go home and you wait because the next day you're going to have plastic surgery. They have to rebuild it. So I go home and it's a great, awful pain. They gave me this big bottle of these mega painkillers. I'd never take any pain medicine, but it was so bad. It felt like my face was on a barbecue grill. I mean, it was just bad. And my wife looked at me and said, "She's not going to take a pain pill." I said, "Well, I cut 1 in half." I go, "Maybe." And I put it in my mouth. But as I was putting it in my mouth, I go, "I love you, Babaji. Take care of this." Swallowed the pill before the pill even was past my Adam's apple. It was still going down. Pain was gone. I should have did that in the first place, right? So, okay, great. Mm-hmm. But I'm exhausted. So I tell my wife, it's still about 5 o'clock in the afternoon. I go, I'm going upstairs. I'm staying in a separate bedroom because I'm all bloody and a mess, and it's ugly for my wife and everything. And so I go in this spare bedroom and I lay down and I'm sleeping and I'm resting. And I wake up and it's dark and everything's wet. Holy cow, man, I must have been crying. I must have been crying, right? So I come downstairs and I'm like, yeah, she was still watching TV. It was like 8 o'clock at night or something. I said, I must have been in pain and crying or something. She says, well, the pillow, the blankets, everything's wet. She goes, well, that's what? So she goes upstairs, she comes down, she's got, a pillowcase, blankets, everything it's all blood soaked, right? Apparently I was bleeding. She goes, "You were bleeding." And I go, "Oh, thank God. I thought I was crying. I mean, I can handle bleeding. Crying, no. For my reputation." So I go to bed that night. I'm sleeping by myself. I got this big, huge patch over this whole thing here. I mean, over the eye and over the nose, and half the face is bandaged up. around 4 o'clock in the morning, which in India is called, the Shiva hour. That's, just before 4 o'clock and a little after 4 o'clock. That time is the best time to meditate. If you're ever meditating, if you get up that hour, it's the perfect time to talk to and listen to God. So it's a beautiful thing. It's not only that, I guess it's physically probably the most quietest time of the day as well, and everything's rested, and it's just the perfect time to meditate. But around 4 o'clock, I'm woken up by light in the room, and I just roll over and I look at the wall, and the wall is a blazing orb of oozing light. It was just like shards of light coming out, so bright that it should have blinded you. It'd be like looking at an arc welder, with that bright light. It was just bright. Now, a normal person, then again, a normal person would go, gee whiz, what's this? What's going on? Get excited. We try to figure it out, ask questions. I just roll over and look at it and I go, yeah, I expected that. That's nice. That was about my total reaction. And I'm looking at this wall, and all of a sudden, a bare arm, all the way back to this whole arm comes out of the orb, out of the wall, comes across all the way to the bed, and his hand covers all the bandages. And it was just like being wrapped in God's mother. It's like God's mother was hugging you. It was like you were loved. It was just, you feel in every fiber of your body, you could feel the love. It was just, wow. I don't know how long it lasted. I didn't ask one single question. I didn't utter a word. I never had a thought. Never had a thought question like, wow, this is cool. How long is this going to last? What is it? Who is it? Nothing. It was just, yeah, okay. I deserve this. I expected this. This is nice. Thank you. It was just more of a gratitude. Somebody loves me. I really love them. So this goes on for, I don't know how long. So I wake up the next morning and I told my wife, she said, okay, fine. So we get in the car and we're driving to Folsom to go have plastic surgery done. And the day before, when they cut my nose off, they took photographs of my face and they digitally sent it to the surgeon. And he had a blow up. When we get there, he has this blow up and he has little squares on it, graphed like a graph. And he shows all these little squares. He says, I'm going to cut your forehead in a big triangle, and I'm going to take it and not detach it from here, but I'll just leave it attached. And I'm going to take that pieces of your ears and pieces of someplace else, and I'm going to rebuild some structure. And then I'm going to lay your skin of your forehead and sew it down over that. And then you'll have a hump there for a while. And then when that heals, then I'll come back, operate, remove the hump, and then we'll operate again, about 6 surgeries, and we'll smooth it all out. I go, really? He goes, yeah. So he tells my wife that. So she's going, wow, okay. He's going to walk around looking like an elephant or something here for a while, right? So he says, yeah, I've been doing these 30-some years. This is the way I planned it for the last hour. This is the way it's going to be. I never deviate. Okay. So I go in, I get surgery done. I come out, I'm being wheeled out in a wheelchair. My wife looks at me and she goes, and she asks for the doctor. I think, what's going on? It must be worse than I thought, right? And doctor comes out, she goes, you didn't do what you said you were going to do. He says, it's really odd. He says, when I went into the surgery, he says, I've been doing this over 30 years. I've never done it different till today. But today I felt inspired, and I decided to take a big chunk of his shoulder and build his nose from his shoulder. And nothing off the forehead. No. And he says, and it should be healed good enough, if he wants more plastic surgery, but it should work. She goes, really? Okay. And then he gives me a big ball, big bag of pills. Take these home. And I go, don't die. No. So I go home. The pain gets really terrible. Then I kind of just listen, thinking away, it's gone. the doctor's words, you'll have to take these pills to get some sleep. I go, nah, not after the experience I had yesterday. No way, right? So I go to bed that night, 4 o'clock in the morning. You know what happens? We have a reappearance of the orb, the light, the love, the hand, the touch, and I could feel the healing. It was just beyond anything. I can't describe it. It was just beautiful. So there I was laying there blissfully for what felt like hours or days. Reality was minutes. I don't know. When you have these things, time is actually a useless measurement. It doesn't really measure the extent and the nature, the duration of what's really happening, because everything's in the now. It's just an eternal now. So I come and I tell my wife, and she goes, okay, great. So 10 days later, I'm supposed to go in and see the plastic surgeon because he tells me he wants to take the stitches out. I go in there, and he's looking at my nose. He's taking little scissors out and stuff. He gets frustrated, and he says, I ain't never seen this before. I go, what? He says, it's impossible. I go, what's impossible? He says, in 10 days, that skin from your shoulder has grown completely over everything, including the stitches. I have to actually cut the stitches out. And I go, is that unusual? And he goes, it's impossible. He had to actually cut all the stitches out. Of course, it was not comfortable. But so then I had canceled a wedding that I was a guest at because I looked like Frankenstein. I thought, oh, this is bad. And then I go, you know what? I'm gonna tell people I'm gonna be there in a few days. And even though it still looked like Frankenstein, it was like a jigsaw puzzle. I went to the wedding and I wore an eye patch over one eye, which covered, because my tear duct was cut and the eyelid and all this stuff. So I had it looked cool. Honestly, I didn't want to take it off. It looked really good. It was a beautiful eye patch. I mean, in fact, I still got it. And on occasion I get to wear it. Anyway, but it's like, well, when you got an eye patch, there's just something about when you're a guy and you got an eye patch, right? I mean, you got a picture, right? I mean, is that the look or is that the look? Come on. Anyway, I had to do that. There you go. So that's as goofy as I was. I thought, oh, this is cool, right? So I'm going to the wedding and I'm sitting there and people are looking at me because they can hardly see anything. It's like, other than the eye patch, the nose was almost normal. I'm sitting at a table where this guru had been invited. The one I stayed at his ashram, one of his devotees was getting married, so he was invited to this. It was in Napa Valley, very ritzy, the wine and the band. And I mean, it was a very elegant wedding. We were sitting at a table with 9 people, and the guru was sitting there. And I'd just been quiet the whole time, right? And he turns around and looks at me and he says, Bill, you know what happened to you the other night, 2 nights in a row? I go, who told this guy? What's going on? And he says, that was not a dream. Wasn't a vision. It was real. You got a visit from the big boss. Now he calls the big boss Babaji. That's Babaji calls the big boss. And everybody goes, what? He says, tell the people what happened. So again, I was asked to share. So you can see, I was asked to share that experience at the table with these people. And the first time I was asked to share it, with all the people at the ashram. And then at the hospital, when it happened, there was a witness. So I had to, kind of share it, and so unless somebody makes me share, asks me to share that has some authority, I don't. So my advice to most people, if you're having a spiritual experience, a real beautiful spiritual experience, honor yourself, the sacredness of yourself first, unless you're getting orders. Literally, you're getting orders through your readings you've had, from gurus you've had, from holy people telling you, no, your job is to share. It's like every time I get a reading, they go, your job's to tell stories, your job's to tell about this, your job. Every single reading I've ever had, naughty palm leaf readings, tarot card readings, star charts, Vedic charts, whatever it is, gurus, it always comes back, your job, your duty your duty is to share. But there's some stories, regardless of that, that I do not share. I hold back. It's like, no, it's not up for debate. It's not up for speculation. I don't want to cheapen it. So I had an opportunity when I was working with this guru for several years. He wrote a book, Lightning Standing Still, which is Babaji, Lightning Standing Still. And he talks about the origins and who Babaji, what Babaji is, and everything. So I was there, spent several years with them, and we'd spend months at the ashram, and I'd be sitting next to him while he's dictating the book and everything. And one day he's dictating this book, and it's just like he's channeling this stuff about Babaji, right? And this guy's typing, and the guru's sitting right behind him dictating, and I'm sitting in a chair right next to him, head to head. And it was so overwhelming, the energy, that I got so dizzy and just I fell out of the chair onto the floor and just kept dictating. It was like I just went, woo. It was so high energy. Babaji, Lightning Standing Still. Great, wonderful book if anybody wants to read it. But it was what I learned was that Babaji is not just this avatar. There's a lot of avatars. Well, a lot. It's a relative term. I mean, there's a number of them. A lot is probably not the right word, but there are many. And their jobs can be very public, that they're known about, and there's myths and things and stories, or you never hear about them. There's great avatars, great ones now in caves, whether it's in Shasta, the Himalayas, or Mount Fuji, or or Kailash, or wherever they may be at, doing great good for this world. Through their meditation, they're changing the frequency and the vibration of this earth. So there's some people, they got millions of followers. They got YouTube videos. They got likes up the yin yang. They got everything. They got money. They got it all. And they'll be gone 25 years. Nobody will remember them. And then there's these great ones, could be living hundreds of years. Hundreds of years. Unknown quiet. I heard a story when I was in India this year, January, and I don't know how much of it I could tell without, offending people, or, some people try to keep this stuff secret. But their guru had lived in Mount Kailash for 40 some years, meditating in a cave, out ever moving, and he was frozen in a block of ice when they found him. And his devotees thawed him out and everything, and got him back to health and everything. And when they were talking to people, they realized that their great grandfather was a disciple of this guy, and their grandfather and their father and their mother, and now they are. And they started adding up. They knew about him for 200 and some years, just by people that had written about him, knew about him, and talked to him, who were devotees. And then he passed away during COVID sometime. He finally left his body. But for 200 and some years, this guru, unknown to the world, was doing all kinds of stuff, right? And he's just helping people here and helping people there. So just because you're famous doesn't make you a spiritual giant. And just because you got thousands of followers or millions of followers, it's not a measure. The measure is frequency and vibration. The great ones, first off, anybody comes to you and says, I'm enlightened, I'm this great being, they're not. If somebody tells you they are, they're not. If somebody's enlightened, they're just going to go, oh, tell them something. They go, yeah, okay, I'm just this ordinary guy. They're just going to be humble. So obviously that tells you where I'm at. No humility at all. So when somebody has a frequency level at that energy cycle, I mean, just it is changing the world. So it doesn't take a lot of people to change the world. They go, well, how many people does it take to change a light bulb? Well, one, but 500 people to change this, but one avatar can change the world. I mean, it's just If you look at the great ones that have come through, Buddha, Jesus, Krishna, the great ones, their energy is still out there. There's people still being inspired by Jesus today. I mean, so you can get in all the debates you want about who, what, where, when, why. God don't care what your religion is. Only thing God cares about is who do you love? Not even who loves you. Because, movie stars, people, movie star, they love them all. No. Everybody loves the Rolling Stones, Who do you love? Do you love your enemies? So just as a note in passing that if you want to change the world, change the energy and the frequency within you. In other words, love yourself, heal yourself. You will change the world to a degree that your energy and frequency is elevated to. Okay? So some big avatar, him changing the world and him changing things, it's a whole different level. But it all adds up. It all counts. I mean, how many straws before you break the camel's back, right? Everybody adds their little energy, and little energy. Next thing you know, it's got weight. But it doesn't take as many people to change the world as you think. They talk about the significant, what's the term that they use, the prime factor, whatever it is.
I know what you're thinking of, and I can't remember.
There's a core of some kind. You reach the critical mass. There it is. Critical mass. You reach critical mass, which could only be 5, 10, 15, 20%, depending on what it is. Think about that. If you get 5, 10% of people that are powerful, they will change the other 90% as much as they're allowed to, as much as people open their heart to. We are in a precarious world right now. And if it wasn't for the unknown avatars, saints, sages, ascended masters, wherever you want to call them, the protectors out there, if it wasn't for those people out there working now with energy, we would have World War III. We would have things beyond the pale of sadness. It could be a lot worse than it is now. You got to go, oh my God, it's bad now. Well, what would it be like if you didn't have all this other stuff going on? So I think we're safe. Think about this, and I hope to God it continues. When I was born, it was several months after the last 2 atomic bombs were dropped, and I was born a few months later. My entire life, nobody's been killed by an atomic bomb. 77 plus years. Nobody's been killed by an atomic bomb. Close, America, this saintly country of America, we're supposed to be righteous and ethical. We dropped 2 of them. And then we got people out there that we don't think they're as ethical or moral as us. And they possess them, and nobody's dropped one. Who's stopping it? Who is stopping the crazy people from dropping it? There's something at work out there. Because by all rightful manners, we probably should have had World War III or World War IV by now. But it's not. So people think, oh my God, it's getting worse. It's getting worse. No, it's not. It's just that we got better cable television coverage than they had before. Everything that happens, you know about right away. Except for the craziness going on with kids killing kids. That I will never understand. I don't understand that at all across the country. But underneath all that anger and all that hate and frustration, and people being self-righteous, it's our way or no way, right? We're right, you're wrong. We're red, you're blue. We're Christian, you're not. It's like, come on, wake up. There's only one God. The only thing that's real is love. Everything else is temporary delusion. Eventually, the good news is even the worst out there, even the worst people out there, when they wake up, they will be ascended masters. They will be great. Their destiny is to become one again. Their destiny is to find sainthood, to find joy, to find love. That is their destiny. So you got to believe that. And when you believe that, and you start looking at the world differently, because if you start thinking about all the bad stuff going on in the world and you just look for it, you'll find it everywhere. If you think this world's going corrupt and all the politicians are terrible and everybody hates and there's anger, If you see it on the news enough, you're going to think it is absolutely a part of your everyday. It is. It will be a part of your everyday. You'll see it everywhere. But if you see love, forgiveness, joy, you will find it everywhere as well. So if you're going to have a presence in your life, attract and manifest those things that bring joy and peace to everyone. And you do that by manifesting a higher frequency in yourself. Get back to that again. Mm. You own that responsibility to the world to give. You come into this world with all these other souls. It's like there's a group of us traveling together, right? There's this group, we kind of rotate in together and then probably come back. So, I mean, it's the same inner circle of people that you know. Not too many strangers come into your life. People had enemies and friends, and you work stuff out with them, and but loving somebody and hating somebody, you'll attract them again. You got to work stuff out. So work stuff out with love. Work stuff out with joy and peace in your heart. But you will attract what you think about, what you believe, what you desire. And you think, oh, let's suffer. People really, I'm not good enough for this. I deserve to be mistreated. You see people, they're battered and they're beaten and they're abused, and you go, they're permitting that because they don't fully love who they are. If they did, they wouldn't permit it. They'd say, no, they'd say, go ahead and kill me. I don't care, but I'm not going to fall for this stuff. I'm not going to believe this. Loving the self. When you love yourself, you realize that the self is the God within. And everybody else out there, even Melissa, God is there. So I'm talking to the God in Melissa. The God in me talks to the God in you. And when you see things like that, then we are one. How could you not be one? When you see just your story and that person's story and that person's story, then they're all separate. Separation brings happiness, unhappiness. Separation brings darkness.
Bill, thank you so much for sharing such a powerful message. And I also want to thank you for sharing your experiences. And I'd like to give you a chance to share with the viewers where they can find you.
Okay. First off, because I'm not too commercial, I was thinking about these things afterwards. I've got a couple of books out. Hang on a second. Let me see if I can get that there. Okay.
There we go. We can see it.
Alchemy of a Warrior's Heart. That deals with me going to India, 4 or 5 trips to India, meeting some gurus, some sacred people, a couple of near-death experiences. Very mystical book. And that's written after my autobiography, which takes from my birth all the way to having a heart attack on Machu Picchu. That's actually a picture of Machu Picchu, a little bit different than you normally see. But I was on Machu Picchu. I ended the book there. I thought, I'm having a heart attack, thought I was dying. I go, if I'm dying, I wrote my obituary. And so that's a heck of a way to end a book. I thought, well, if this is the end, right? If this is the end, here's the obituary I wrote. The end of my book, I said, yeah, what the heck? I may never write another book. So my obituary would be, if I could write my own epitaph, he was a spiritual warrior who sang his own song. He loved his children and grandchildren without measure. He was a faithful and loyal husband, citizen, shoulder, poet. He came, he saw, he helped, he believed. Honor, courage, and faith were his creed, but love motivated everything he did. And by the amazing grace of God, he lived his life.
Bill, thank you again so much. This is one of my favorite talks I've ever had. I just loved listening to you share your experiences. So thank you for being willing to do this.
Thank you. God bless.
Thank you for watching and listening. Your views, likes, comments, and shares truly make the biggest difference in supporting this channel. Don't forget to check the show notes for all the links to today's guest, as well as my links. You'll find me on social media at Love Covered Life, my website, lovecoveredlife.com, and the Be a Guest link for anybody who would like to be a guest on the channel. I have great news. Love Covered Life podcast is coming available on audio podcast. You can find it wherever you listen to your audio podcasts.